Are you afraid of the dark? Have you ever felt, heard, or seen things that aren't there? Paranormal activity, stalking spirits, past lives, portals into the unknown, and more. Take a journey into the shadows with your hosts Regina and Teresa as they discuss all things paranormal. Regina Stewart is a psychic medium who has been interested in the paranormal ever since the age of 7, when she realized she could communicate with people who were no longer amongst the living. Teresa McLean is a spiritually gifted psychic who at the age of 3 had a near-death out-of-body experience, which resulted in her being stalked her entire life by a hitchhiking entity. Teresa knows how it truly feels to be haunted. This isn't a show for the easily offended or faint-hearted. Now, follow me as Teresa and Regina take us into the shadows.
This is Teresa. I'm going to be your host tonight. Regina will be co-hosting. We wanted to go ahead and kind of discuss with everybody that's listening in that we're going to switch our formats here. I know that we've been doing the blog talk radio, and we're going to continue trying to do that, but we're also going to be pre-recording our shows and then uploading them to YouTube. And then later on, Paranormal Depot, we might be going in with them and having our own little channel. Our guest tonight is going to be Denise Pridemore of Pridemore Paranormal. She's also famous for the Ghost Adventures, being on the show as a tour guide for the Sally House, the famous Sally House, and we're going to let her tell us more about that. She should be a very interesting guest. Hi, Denise. How are you doing? This is Teresa here. Regina's over there waiting, too. She's in there listening to our show, and I just wanted to say welcome to Into the Shadows. I want to go ahead and let you go ahead and introduce yourself and why the paranormal.
Well, I'm Denise Pridemore, and I had my first paranormal experience when I was very young, and it was related to my grandmother's death. I told my family that she had been killed, and she had been, but I had said, I gave them more information. I said, hey, Grandma wasn't just killed in a car accident, she was murdered. And of course, coming from a 5-year-old girl, this is a little bit odd. You know, you're just dreaming, you're 5. Be quiet. Well, when I was 10, my father was murdered. And I got up and I told my mom, Dad's dead. And he was killed. And I told her everything about how he died. Okay? At that point, I was told, hush, people are going to think you're nuts. Things like that. Mostly because of the fact that nobody wants to hear that. And the person who killed my father was his own father. He's also the person that killed my grandmother. So, needless to say, that's kind of out there, kind of weird. But it was factual. So after that, I pretty much kept my mouth shut for years and years about things. Back in 1985, we purchased a house in Kansas City, Missouri, and I'm pregnant with my first kid, and there's a boy that keeps showing up in my house. Says, Mom. I say, what? He goes away. Don't think anything of it. I have no history on the house. I know nothing. About, 11 years later, we're buying a car at this place in Kansas City, in Overland Park, Kansas, and we write down our address on the paperwork, and the salesman looks over and says, I know where your house is. That's a suicide house. Kid committed suicide in your house. I was like, really? And he starts naming off people in our neighborhood that we knew. And I was like, well, that's odd that nobody ever told us this. But then later on, we had our house up for sale, and the kid came out again, and I answered him and everything, and started talking to him a little bit, and I never saw him again. Do the people who live there now know that the house is haunted? Probably. Well, hopefully they know. I didn't tell him, but I didn't know if I had to back then to disclose it. And now we've gotten into paranormal investigating, and I love it. It's great fun, except certain times it's not fun. It's kind of scary sometimes. But when I was living in that house, I would get up in the middle of the night I got pregnant 4 times in the house, so I had 4 kids while I was living there. So I was up in the middle of the night a lot, watching a haunting or scariest places on earth or anything like that in the middle of the night. It's perfect, right? And so I would listen to that, and one night I'm watching it, and on a haunting is Sally House. And I was pulled in. I had to watch everything I could find on the Sally House. We didn't have internet, okay? We didn't have internet. We didn't even have a home computer, so it's not like you could research a whole lot. So every time that came on, I would watch it. I would tape them all so I could, watch them on the VCR later. Then a couple nights later, I saw this other place called McPike Mansion. Fell in love with it. Okay. Then the next couple nights, I ended up seeing the Villisca Axe Murder House. Okay. So those were my holy grails of places that I wanted to go. So a bunch of years ago, we went on a ride over to, we were in St. Louis. My husband's family lives in St. Louis. And I asked him, I said, do you know where McPike Mansion is? And he goes, no, where is it? I said, it's in Alton, Illinois. And he goes, I used to go there all the time because you could drink at 18 over there. So needless to say, it was illegal to drink at 18 in Missouri, but it was okay in Alton. So he didn't know where it was, so we decided to go find it. And when we did, what was interesting was Ghost Lab was there. Okay. Didn't know anything about the show. It hadn't even aired yet. Nobody knew anything about it. And so Brad Kling comes out to talk to me when I show up at the house, tells me, oh, we got the house rented. You can't. I was like, that's all I need to know. I said, I just need to know is this is the right place so that I can come back and get a tour. I said, that's all I wanted to know. So the following month we went back, and we got a tour of the house. The house is condemned, so you can't go in the house. You can only go in the basement of the house. And we were hooked on that house. We now volunteer there for every camp out that they have. And now they're only doing campouts in October. So if anybody's looking for something fun to do, McPike Mansion, October 22nd is the camp out. It's adults only, no drinking, but we have a great time. Food's included, dinner and donuts and coffee for breakfast. And we have a great time. So then a couple months later, we're going up to Iowa. Ron's family lives in his parents are from Iowa. So we're heading up there for a family reunion. And because of flooding, we were sent off on this other road that we never went on. And I go, I really wonder where Villisca is. He goes, I don't know. He goes, it must be way up north. He goes, because I never heard of it. And he goes, I think my cousins would say something if it was close by. Turn the corner, Villisca, 11 miles. Okay. We didn't have to turn off the road yet. So, where we had to turn off was 17 miles. So we go up and we pull in, and somebody has a house rented. Of course, it's always the case. Somebody has a house rented, and we pull in, and I take this really unusual picture of the sign and find out that, hey, they're open on Sunday. On our way back, we can stop and get a tour then. So we left. We go to the family reunion, and I'm showing my picture. And, of course, it's a creepy-looking picture, but it's not creepy at all. It's I was taken with a palm phone with no flash, so a really slow shutter speed, and it was a lightning bug. But it looked neat. And so we shared that with the family, and that's when his family comes and says, we got to tell you something. The sheriff in the investigation was Ron's great uncle. I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. So we're related to the Villisca Axe Murder House by investigative forces there. We always have some kind of experience there. And then, it was that fall. I told Ron, I go, hey, we're going up to Atchison. You want to come? So we decided to go up there. And I went in the Sally house, and the first thing I said was, this ain't the house that was on a haunting. Out of all the things to say, that's what I noticed, is that it wasn't the house that was on a haunting. And I go through, and this is great. I love it. And had nothing happen, and but it was really interesting. The following week we went back, and it was even different. I ended up getting a picture of a thing that looked like a lightning bolt on the bed, and I got sick in the closet in the master bedroom and had really high EMF in there. And we only had a few pieces of equipment then. We had the little ghost meter, digital recorder, and a camera, crappy camera. And so anything we got, nowadays I would probably go, oh, it's a crappy camera, it's probably this, probably that. But it wasn't, because I've had these same things happen again and again and again. Well, after that I said, I need to find out if they need volunteers. I said, my company will pay them if I volunteer 40 hours, because it's a 501(c)(3). So needless to say, I volunteered. And so did my husband. His company matches his time too. So we get in there and we start volunteering. This is our beginning of our fifth year volunteering. And I've had everything happen to me, from a fold-up chair being thrown across the basement at me, my hair pulled. I've been scratched and bruised. I've been pushed, shoved. A little light push to a heavy shove. I felt something try to push me down the steps multiple times. It's been very, very interesting, to say the least. I had never been scratched until after Ghost Adventures was there, and I don't know why that started, but the bruising always seemed to be handprints on the insides of my arms, to the point to where my husband inspects my arms and my legs every time we get ready to go up there to make sure that I don't have anything on me, because it got to where it was bothering him a lot that I was getting scratched and bruised and everything else. So really, that's a lot of it. We host investigations there. We're asked to come up to help people with their investigations. I think it's because I'm a trigger object. But other than that, I've also investigated from, basically New Jersey to Seattle, down to places in Las Vegas and Nevada area, all the way out to the Bahamas.
First off, I want to say I'm so sorry about your dad and your grandmother. That's a horrible thing to have happen to you. The second thing is, a lot of us are familiar with the Axe House and never heard of the Pike Mansion. Is that what you called it?
McPike, McPike. McPike, yeah.
So what is it about the McPike that makes it haunted?
Oh, the house has got a strange history to it. But the thing is McPike seems to be haunted by the family that used to live there. The mother of the children, she never crossed over, according to the shamans there. One is Sandy Little Lizard, and the other is Coyote Chris Sutton, if any of you guys know Coyote Chris. And she's there, and Henry McPike had the option of crossing over or staying, but he decided to stay with his first wife, who passed. And she passed even before they moved to the house. So how she is there, I don't know. We've had contact with probably 8 to 10 different spirits there. And I think it's just they didn't want to leave. They loved their home so much that they didn't leave. Nothing traumatic that anyone knows of ever happened there.
So it's more of a family haunting.
Yes. There is sightings of a man who lived in the house after the fact, he bought it. He won it in a poker game, this guy named Paul Lashinger. He won it in a poker game, and some people say they see him there. But after that, there seems to be nobody, and I believe he was at least in like the 1930s to the 1950s. But the house was abandoned, and it's on the historic register, and they're in the process of rebuilding. Well, not rebuilding, I guess refurbishing everything. Yeah, renovating. It's all those R words, and getting it all to be a bed and breakfast at some point. And it's turning. They got all the windows done on one side of the house now, and as soon as they can get the windows done, they can work on the floors, and then people can actually tour inside. The guy who's doing the renovations on the windows and stuff says he doesn't believe in paranormal activity at all, and yet he's seeing stuff he can't explain.
And then what about the Sally House? For those that don't know the story on that, kind of explain to our listeners what the Sally House is kind of about, what the haunting is about, or like who they suspect it is. The second part of it, when we're talking, me and Regina, we're talking about scratches and ghosts touching you. We've all had these experiences. I've even been laid down on. Can you go ahead and give your opinion about that? Do you think that's demonic, or do you think it is just a spirit trying to gain your attention?
Well, some of the stuff with the Sally House is unusual because if you go out and you research it online, you get the urban legends, and that's the part that I have issue with. I take a lot of issue with urban legends with no fact. So basically they say that the Sally House is haunted by a little girl who was brought there in the middle of the night to have surgery on her because she had an appendectomy. They had to do an emergency appendectomy in the middle of the night. Okay, supposedly in 1905, and there's no history of any of this ever happening. That's the first thing I'm going to tell you. There is no history of it at all. If there had been a little girl taken there at the time, there would have been not only the doctor lived in the house, but his mother, his wife, his sister, and his sister's husband. So you have 5 people that live in the house, plus you have the mother. If somebody killed your kid, even by accident, wouldn't you tell everybody and their brother? It had been in the newspaper. There had been a death certificate. There had been something. So, I throw a wrench in that one. There's other urban legends that go with the house. One has to do with Sightings did a made-for-TV movie, and the experiences that they show that the family had that was alive, that was experiencing the hauntings is right on. They said that, Deb and Tony Pickman said that that's the closest to reality than any show had done to what they experienced. But they came back with that there was a doctor who lived in the house who had his wife, and she had an affair with a slave, and when the baby was born, it was obviously not his. Well, there's a problem with that. The house wasn't even built until after the Civil War, like 6 years after the Civil War. There was no slaves in Kansas. Okay, so even though Atchison was founded by David Rice Atchison, who wanted it to be slaves, by the time the city became an actual city, it had already been voted out, and then the state came into the Union as a free state. So no slaves, sorry, So there's that, and then the third urban legend that gets me is the one where there was a doctor who lived in the house who had an affair with his with his African American housekeeper, and they had a love child, and that she died from pneumonia in the upstairs bedroom, and this was from a haunting. This was their take on it. So out of all of those things, the only thing that is true is that a doctor did live in the house. He lived in the house until 1905. But the unusual thing is if any of this stuff had happened, you have to think about this. He was elected mayor in 1913. Okay, again, he was the first Democrat mayor, so that the Republican would have been throwing this in his face, because it would have been going the other way too. It didn't matter if he's a Republican or Democrat. They would have been throwing it in their face, hey, you killed this kid in your house. That never happened. So I'm going to say that never happened. Why is it haunted? I have no clue other than the fact that it is. And who's haunting the house? Could be any number of people. I've talked with Deb and Tony Pickman. I've talked with other people, and I'll tell you what I feel that there is Agnes Finney True is in that house. She lived there the longest. She lived there 72 years. She's an elderly lady who never had children, but yet she seems to, well, this is my opinion, she seems to like everybody. She's the person that makes you feel welcome in her house. So when you walk into the Sally house, you feel like, oh, this is any other house. I could live here. And I hear a lot of people say that. The other person that's in the house is Dr. Finney. And how often is he there? So far, it doesn't seem to be very often, but I've seen him in the house with a nice flat hat on, not an Abraham Lincoln hat. That'd be out of the range for him, date range. Then there's another lady that's in the house, and she is Kate Finney, Dr. Finney's mother, even though she died next door at 510 2nd Street. So then you got, who else is in the house? Well, there's random spirits that are in there all the time. Anytime, there's times where you have 5 spirits in the house, and other times you have 500 spirits in the house. It gets overwhelming. And I don't know if any of you have ever been in that situation, but it gets to be very hard to concentrate when you're going through that, and especially when people bring their own spirits with them. That's always fun too. But the Pickmans moved in 1992. Actually, it was like the last day of 1992, and they stayed 18 months. They moved out in July of 1994, and they had all kinds of experiences in the house, and that was the first time it was documented by anyone saying, hey, my house is haunted. Previous family that lived in the house had a little girl that said she had an imaginary friend named Sally, but they never came forward until after Deb wrote her book in 2000. She wrote it before 2010, but it was put out in 2010. And so was it haunted before? It's quite possible that it was, but nobody ever said anything, so we have no proof of anything prior to 1992. After the Pickmans moved out, only one person stayed there longer than 3 months, and she is the lady that is accused of doing the animal sacrifices in the basement. And don't know if she was, well, I'm going to go with I believe that she was on the dark side of magic. And she knew when she rented that house that there was already something there. I believe that it's gotten worse and worse over the years. There have been cleansings done back in 2004. 2004. A cleansing was done and a binding was done, but it only lasted for about 3 months before people were getting attacked again and everything. And according to the Pickmans, I just investigated with them a few weeks ago, and I asked this question to them. I said, was the activity cyclical? Like was it with the moon cycles or anything? They said no, but most of the time they said that it would make them, appease them by being really quiet for a while, get on their, get them to thinking, oh, this is all in my mind. It was not that bad. Basically let them heal up a little bit, and then it would come back with full force. So that was one of the things that I talked to them about, and I really wanted to know more. I still want to know more, so we're going to talk some more, but I want to know more about what was left out of the book. And because you can't put everything in the book, even though Deb did keep a really good diary that happened. But one of the things about the Sally House that really gets people is how it drives a wedge between people. The spirit in there, I've seen paranormal groups break up in the house. I've seen married couples get into arguments. Well, that's me and my husband. No. I've seen married people get into arguments. I've seen the teenagers that volunteer decide that they want to get argumentative for no reason whatsoever. They've always been nice before, and suddenly they're argumentative. And it's very, very odd how that is. But, just watching a paranormal group break up in front of your eyes over nothing. Because you're watching it yourself and going, I don't know what in the hell they're fighting about. And it's just that bad. But the spirit that's there that's the worst is mostly in the basement floor of the house. So, and why? I have been scratched upstairs in the hallway upstairs. So it's not like he's always in these places, but if you're going to encounter him, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be in the basement. And I don't know why that is. Okay, I'm going to just tell you that now. I don't know why that is. I do not know if he's demonic, or if he is, I don't even know if it's a he. But the voice I always hear, the laughter I always hear, sounds demonic and sounds male. Okay? is it demonic or is it just trying to fake us out so that we're scared of whatever it is? I don't know. And I do believe that the bruising, it comes from a different entity than the one doing the scratching. And the reason I believe that is because when I tell the story, when I sit there at the Sally House and I start talking about the truth, if I start out with the urban legends and I let people believe those, that's when I start feeling like something's holding my arm. Like, tell them the truth, tell them the truth. I feel like that's Dr. Finney saying, hey, tell them the truth because I didn't do this. I'm not an inept doctor. I'm not a bad man, things like that. He did make some really bad decisions, like ice skating as Ms. Colby from Baltimore, okay? He did do that. He was a cross-dressing ice skater back before he was a doctor, back in the 1880s. That's just, and he did it in his own hometown where everybody knew him. So maybe that was a bad decision. Maybe supplying beer to the Eagles Club during Prohibition might have been a bad decision. But that he would have been elected mayor by all the ladies in Atchison if he had killed somebody, especially since he was the one known for delivering half the babies in town. That's why I believe that there are two different entities that are causing me trouble. Because, like I said, the bruising doesn't hurt. On the other hand, the scratching hurts. The scratching burns, and it's always in places where I can't reach, not unless I dislocate my arm. My husband's always witnessed it, be in the middle of a room, and all of a sudden I make this, what he calls my stupid face. I make this stupid face, and he'll say, what's wrong? And I go, well, you better check my back. And the thing is this has happened in more places than just the Sally House now. It's happened at the Pythian Castle down in Springfield, Missouri as well. So Tony Pickman has a theory that once you've been marked by he believes the spirit in the house is demonic. Because once you've been marked by a demonic spirit, you could get scratched anywhere.
So who is
Tony Pickman? Deb and Tony Pickman are the ones that lived in the house that were on sightings, a haunting, let's see, My Ghost Story, Paranormal Witness, all kinds of different shows. They were on Ghost Adventures when I was on.
Okay, so he believes that one is demonic.
Right, and like I said, until I have more proof, I'm not going to say that it's demonic. I know that it's scary and it's not very nice. So hopefully I'll get more information about if it's demonic or not without getting hurt. Make sense?
Yeah, and that's why I wanted your opinion on that, because then it sounds like you're a beacon, just like me and Regina both. We have psychic abilities. Regina's a medium. And me, I have a spirit that resides with me ever since I was 3 years old, and I call him the hitchhiker. His name is Mike. And he has done things, but demonic he's not. And as long as I've done paranormal stuff, demonic is a lot more rarer than what TV and stories like that would like to portray. Yeah, they do it for attention, and it's more exciting and more scary if you think that you're in a room with a demon than a naughty or a vindictive ghost.
Right, and that's why I said I don't want to say that it's demonic. I know it feels really evil and it feels bad, but just because it feels that way doesn't mean it's demonic. And until I know more, I'm not going to say. Now, if I start smelling sulfur or something that I can't explain, then I'm going to probably be going, this is demonic. You're going to have to find a new volunteer. And that's how I feel about it. If I start to believe that it's demonic, then I guarantee that my husband won't want to go back up there. He is not sensitive at all. So when things are happening to me, to him that's just validation that something's there. When I tell him that I see stuff, he believes it wholeheartedly because, for years I never told him anything. I never told him about the boy in our house until we had lived there about 11 years. Because I didn't want him to think, oh, my God, my wife is nuts, I'm going to have to lock her up. That's just how it was. I mean, we all know that prior to 2000, most of us didn't say any damn thing if our houses were haunted. Or if we had abilities. We pretty much kept our mouths shut. There wasn't that many people that were coming out and saying, I see spirits, or I can talk to the dead, or I can see your future. You know, right now, this is your future. Or past lives. I mean, I don't remember anybody prior to 2000 that was coming out and saying this stuff openly. It was more hush-hush, more whispery. Do you guys agree?
Oh, yeah. I think that the initial ghost hunters, you know, they're the first ones that brought all of this to the surface. Then you had the haunting and paranormal survivor, all the ones you can name, dead files, everything that's coming out that's made paranormal normal. And it's now kind of a way of life. I think it's eventually, Denise, I honestly think it's going to kind of dwindle out a little bit and then come back up again, you know, later on down the road. Do I ever think it's going to be taboo again? No, I think it's just like lifestyle choices and stuff. It's a new realm that everybody's more open to.
All right, and I agree. I do think that there is going to be a big downturn in the paranormal here in the next 3 to 5 years, if not sooner. You know, you're gonna start seeing, you know, more of these paranormal radio shows are already starting to fall off. You know, there's not. I mean, as many new ones as we see, we're probably seeing double that are going away. Why, I don't know, other than maybe people are finally going back to work. The economy's picking up, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it, me and my co-host, Regina, and I'm going to bring her on here in a second, too, but we've talked about it, and they've kind of like saturated. When you oversaturate something, it's like a river. You know, it overflows and it kind of damages the ground for everybody else. But it's just been too much. It's been the same thing over and over again. And then in order to up the stakes, then you have to make it demonic, you know, without the proof. And that's one of the problems I have with it.
Hi there, Denise.
Hi, Regina. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. How about yourself?
I am doing great today.
Well, I have quite a few questions, but I'll tell you, you answered a lot of them just with your opening with Teresa. So, but I mainly wanted to know a little bit more about what Pridemore Paranormal and what y'all do as far as do y'all do residential cases, or do you do mainly the more well-known places, or how is your team? How do you run your team?
Basically, our team is my husband and myself. My daughters are included in that if they want to go, but we also work independently with other teams. You know, like if somebody wants help, we'll go in as journeymen, you know, and help out wherever they need us, things like that. We also help out on tours with other places as well, because I'm apparently a natural people herder. I tend to herd people very well, but we also do our own paranormal investigations of residentials. I've done them in Kentucky. Well, my mom lives in Kentucky, so for those of you listening, my mom lives in eastern Kentucky. So I've done some there. I've done some in Atchison, Kansas. And just for you guys listening, I live an hour and a half from Atchison, and I'm up there almost every weekend from September through to the beginning of November, and random times throughout the year. So I'm driving an hour and a half up there to do whatever it is I'm doing. And I'm not getting paid. Okay, that's the other thing. Everything we do, we either pay for everything ourselves, or it's free. I mean, we don't pay, you know, we do not charge anybody for any of our time. I've done, in Atchison alone, I've probably done 40 clearings in the last 3 years. I have no clue exactly how many residences we've done. I couldn't tell you. But I will tell you that I know for sure that we've done well over 500 investigations since 2009. And I'm not counting the Sally House in there. I'm only counting the
Right.
Sally House in there once because, anything after that we were helping somebody else or we were doing a tour. I don't consider that to be an investigation if I'm leading a tour. So I just love I love helping people.
Yeah. Well, and what would you say? Say you're doing these investigations. What is the outcome of most of them? Are they? Are you able to help them find the answers that they need? I mean, is it? And do y'all do the house cleansings and things like that to give people peace of mind, or what?
Yes, we've done clearings and cleansings, and clearing is to get everything out of there. We've removed negativity. One house had a spirit in it that was being negative, and once we went in and removed the negativity, that spirit was fine. The girl that lived there did not want her spirit to go. She just wanted him to be happy again. So we had to do a lot of research to try to figure out how do we do this without getting rid of her spirit. And I found a way, to do it. And she says he's still there. She contacts me once a month or so and says, he's still here. He's still happy. And I said, okay, you got to let me know if anything changes. I said, because we may have to change what we did if he gets to be negative again. Things like that. So I kind of try to tailor-make everything to each individual haunting. Like I have one coming up in Gardner, Kansas that I'm working on now, and invoking the name of Jesus doesn't seem to do anything. It quiets down for about an hour and then it starts back up. So I've got to find something that's going to help. So I've been trying to investigate into the background of the family and the property there to see what's going on. It's sometimes it's really hard to come up with the right answer for the right place. And without that history part of it, you're never going to get there. But you also have to go with what the family believes. So like in Atchison, almost half the town is at least Catholic. So when you're going in, you have to go in and you have to know their religion, what they're comfortable with. You can't go in there with sage with a family that's predominantly Catholic and they have no Native American background at all. Otherwise, you're just going to make whatever it is mad. And that's one of the things that you have to know. But yeah, I mean, I go in and tailor-make whatever it is that I need to do for each individual family. And it's been enlightening, to say the least. And so far, nothing I've done has failed. The activity has picked up again, but not to the point to where it was. So, sometimes it feels like you're working on a revolving door on some cases, but it doesn't seem like the one case I'm talking about that seems like this revolving door, it's not getting any worse. But the thing is they keep saying that it's better. It's better. It's not permanent. It's better. And so we're trying to find a way to make it permanent. How can we bind this spirit to not come back? And so, but you guys have probably dealt with the same things.
Oh yeah, it's. I think it's every team is pretty similar to what they do, especially people who are teams that want to help with residential cases and stuff like that, or who specialize with residential cases. The main thing there is that you're able to help them and there's a resolution to the issue. So
as long as you're honest.
Right. Well, and with that being said, have you, and since you have done so many of investigations, have you ever had something follow you home or any type of attachment that has left, left with
yes.
you?
Yes.
From this location?
I actually have a spirit from the Sally House that comes to my house quite often. And when the house was put up for sale, it was very strange. Back in February, they listed the house on the market for $1 million. I'm not going to go into that, but the spirit from the Sally House came to me, and she was very upset. She'd never come to me before. She always came to me, when I was at the Sally House, she was always there. It's Agnes. And, she lived there the longest. It was her house from when she was a small child until the day she died. And she was very upset about the house being up for sale. And she came here, and she was very, very upset, talking to me about, well, first it was gobbledygook. It took a while for her to calm down to talk, to tell me what was wrong, because I didn't know that the house was for sale yet. She's the one who told me. And I told the owner, I said, well, Agnes is upset because the house is for sale. And he goes, who's Agnes? I'm like, okay, well, you don't know anything about your haunted property. And so that's when I didn't talk about it anymore to him. But Agnes has calmed down. I've convinced her that it'll all be okay no matter what. It's still her house, things like that. But there's also a dark entity that comes here, and I believe it's the same one from the basement. He comes here, and he makes me physically sick. So I have to go through and cleanse my house quite frequently. As soon as I get home from the Sally house, I usually take a nice warm Epsom salt bath to wash all the negativity off of me. Do the laundry that I wore because, well, you kind of have to do that anyway. But I get that off of me as soon as I can and get in the tub and try to wash off as much negativity as possible to try to keep the spirit away, because my daughter, she sees him and she gets upset. So needless to say, that means lots of cleansings at home. I mean, I don't know how much sage I have upstairs in reserve. Probably just like you guys.
Yeah. Well, and so kind of along those same lines, I wanted to kind of get your take on attachments and, kind of the same situation, you're in an investigation and something, or, really people can be anywhere, and if a spirit or an entity wants to attach themselves to you, they're going to. And what is your take on that? And, and if have you ever dealt with that, or, and how did you get rid of it?
Well, I've had one multiple times, and I basically just had to sit there and I put myself into deep meditation. After I cleansed myself and everything, I would put myself into a deep meditation and try to talk to the spirit and have it go. So far it's worked, from what I can tell. Seems to take probably, well, one time it took about 4 days of not constant meditation, but because I have a job, I can't meditate at work. They don't pay me for that. But it took a long time to get this one to not come as often as he was coming. I mean, I'm talking, he was standing over my bed at night, watching me, and I had another spirit, and it was my dad. My dad was here, and my dad was trying to keep the spirit away from me a lot. And it just took quite a while, and I think a lot of it had to be intervention from beyond that helped me get the attachment to go away.
Well,
I haven't had a problem in the last 6 months.
Okay, so you do believe? So your thoughts on it are that attachments you can get rid of attachments. And,
I think you can.
Or do you think there's ever? Yeah. Well, that was my next part. Was, do you think there are some attachments that entities that will attach themselves and just do not leave? Yes,
I do believe that. Hopefully, for everybody that gets an attachment, hopefully it's a good attachment that doesn't go away. I mean, it's probably no different than our guardian. We all believe that we have a guardian angel. That's a spirit attachment. So let's hope that if anybody gets a spirit attachment that won't go away, that it's something like that, somebody who loves them, not somebody who's obsessed with them or somebody who is evil, bringing them bad luck or illness or things like that. Hopefully it's something good that doesn't go away. Does that make sense?
Yes. And and then I wanted to go back to the Sally house because I wanted to get a little bit more information on that. But do you think, is the Sally house always active, or does it seem like there's certain parts of the year, certain parts of the day that it becomes more active?
It's extremely active in the mornings. which is very, for most hauntings you have, there's certain times during the day. It seems like after 3 o'clock in the morning until about 7 o'clock in the morning, there's nothing. Usually around 9 o'clock in the morning, there's some sort of activity. And why, I don't know. I think it's just the schedule that it's on. But there are also times when nothing happens in the house at all. I mean, apparently the last investigation there last weekend, they contacted the tour guide that took them through and said, hey, you want to come investigate with us? There's nothing happening here, And then I had somebody else send me a message at 2 o'clock in the morning saying, hey, you want to come investigate with us? And it's like, first of all, I'm an hour and a half away. And second of all, I don't need to be a trigger object at 3:30 in the morning. Okay, so there are times when there's nothing happens. But I mean, we all know spirits don't act on command. They do it when they want to do it. The Pickmans said the same thing. They said that they would go a month and have nothing, and then suddenly they'd have a whole bunch of activity, and then they'd go 2 or 3 months without anything, and then they'd have a whole bunch of stuff. So it's just like any other place. It's not a residual haunting. It seems to all be intelligent that's there. So it's going to act up when it's going to act up. So is it certain times of the year? No. We do seem to, me and my husband, we were there, like the first weekend in September through the first weekend in October. We see a lot of activity in that period of time. Is that because of the spirits of the Sally House or the people that are coming into the Sally House with their own spirits that are creating that activity? I don't know. But we seem to have activity quite frequently if there is a thunderstorm. Like when Ghost Adventures was there, they had activity every night they were there. They were there 4 nights. You guys got to see 42 minutes. And they were there those 4 days, and we had hail. We had tornadoes. We had all kinds of crap when they were up there. And I don't know where the crickets came from because I never have crickets in that house. Bees, yeah, but I've never heard crickets in there until that night. So that was very odd. But and there's also so much more activity that happened when I was with the guys and when the Pickmans were with the guys. They could have done a whole other show in the Sally House. So, but I can't say that it's cyclical or anything like that. It's going to happen when it's going to happen.
Well, and what would you say is some of the best evidence that y'all have gotten from the Sally House?
Well, the chair being picked up and thrown at me 7 feet across the floor was interesting. And I was the only person in the house, which was because I was cleaning up dead bees before a tour came through. And I'm down in the basement, and this chair comes flying across the room and just stopped. If you remember, on the floor there's some black paint on the floor where some pentagrams were painted over at one point, and it stopped right on the edge of that black paint, like maybe 4 inches from my foot, like it hit something and fell. That was pretty interesting. Some of the other things that we get in the house is children talking. The thing is there are no children in the house next door on this side of the house. There's college students, and, oh, crap, I got a cat. Sorry. But that's always interesting when you hear children singing and there's no children around. And then there's, then there was the other things that happened, like, ghost box stuff that, when you have a ghost box, we use the Echo box, and names are coming through, and this is of course on airplane mode. I don't have Wi-Fi on it. I've refused to pay for Wi-Fi for something that needs to be in your house, and we'll get things through there that it can't be anything other than a spirit in that house telling me this. But one of the stories that's really funny is my husband was in the basement with a group of people doing one of the day tours. These 2 ladies came down, and they were just being not nice. Okay, we're just going not nice. And they proceeded to tell everybody down there their opinion. And it wasn't very positive. And the echo box shut down. I mean, not that it shut down and went off. It stopped talking. Nothing was coming through. It was like a blank slate. So Ron thought it was broken, or that it had turned off or lost power or whatever. So he turns it on, or turns it off and turns it back on, thinking something's wrong, and gets it all set up again and starts talking to the spirit. And these ladies go, I don't believe in this stuff. We're leaving. And within a second, they got maybe 3 feet up, 3 steps up, and it says, the spirit box says, bye, bitches. And we're like, really? You know, out of all the things, to have a piece of equipment call the guests' names. And so basically it was me going, oh, crap, you know, why? But it was like it was watching these ladies be rude to all the other guests in the house. So that was funny. But I don't know. I have to say the best thing that's happened to me there is seeing the spirits that I've seen there. The one with the flat hat and Agnes. I wish I could have gotten pictures of them, but it always seems to happen when I'm first walking in the house or getting ready to leave. You know, because, you know, at those times I don't have people that I'm talking to, trying to explain to them the history or whatever. But when I first walk into the house, there's been times where I've walked into that house and I've been rushed with air. And, of course, everything's closed. Why is that? This was really weird. The other day we were there, last Thursday, or Thursday before that. We did a tour up there, and we're in the house, and I cannot open the door. Okay, this has happened before. It got jammed. How did it get? I mean, I couldn't even turn the handle on the door, but it got jammed. And there was a guy on the other side of the door that was knocking, trying to come in. You know, the roofing guy. And here I am. I'm trying to pull open the door. Finally, Ron gets over there, and he's pulling on it. He's having the same problem. Eventually, we got it open, but that was very odd, considering that I had just gotten in the door when we started the tour. Now, why is it to the point where I couldn't get out? So I don't know. It doesn't matter, you know, really what evidence you have, because somebody is always going to say it's this or it's that. You know, like light anomalies. You know, we get a ton of light anomalies in that house, you know, all different colors. And somebody's going to say, oh, it's dust. Okay, well, it could be dust, but I've never seen purple dust. How about, you know, now if I see a snowstorm, I'm going to say that's dust. Okay, that's dust. But if it's something carrying its own light and acting on your command, that's not dust, unless you really know where dust is going to go. I figure it's going to go to the ground at some point, but, you know, that's it. So, but I know how I am. I discount almost everybody's evidence, and you guys probably do too. Probably say, oh, that's probably, you know, their like EMF. Oh, their camera is probably too close to the EMF detector. Or maybe they have their cell phone on in their pocket. Things like that. You know, like me, I get upset about the flashlight trick. And then the reason I do is because it's called a trick. It's not called the flashlight experiment. It's called a trick. You know, and people use that flashlight trick to prove nothing to me. So, I don't know. I can talk all night. So.
Well, it was so funny because I was fixing to say something about the flashlight or trick. I've never called it a trick. I just always say, you know, I'm going to investigate with the flashlights. But anyways, in the way I kind of disprove things, or I guess I should say, make people realize that it has to be something that, you know, an entity or a spirit that's doing that. Is, you know, I place multiple ones, and I tell them specifically which one to turn on and off. And and there's just no way to do that on command. You know, as far as, I mean, you say, you know, turn the left one on. You know, there's no way for me to get, you know, it's halfway across the room. There's no way for me to get over there. But like you said, I mean, people are going to always try to disprove you, you know, or debunk whatever it is. But
right, and that's what they should do. They should make you question everything.
Well, that's really what it's about, and that's why we have to have really hard evidence to prove things. And But with that being said, what would you say is your favorite piece of equipment to use to get evidence?
Well, I'll tell you honestly, I don't get a chance to use a lot of equipment because I'm always leading groups or whatever, but most of the time, my favorite thing is to use I like my camera. I love my dowsing rods. But my dowsing rods, people will go, those can be manipulated. I like the old school things like a compass. I like my compass. I think that it's great. If you sit there and you put the compass down on the ground and it's whirling around like crazy, well, then you know something's going on. If you set it up to where it's pointing north and suddenly it's pointing east and west, then you know something else is going on in that house. Is it paranormal? If it's going around in circles, yeah, it's probably paranormal. If it's just pointing east and west, it could just be that the heater's on. Something is making a magnetic field that it's finding. Maybe it's a tube in the TV, because in the Sally house there is a giant TV that weighs about 500 pounds. It still has a tube in it, so it could be causing a problem. But I like that. I like the Echo Box. I just have trouble listening to it for long periods of time. It gives me a headache. Let's see. I like old school things like a bell on an ornament holder. Sit it down and ask the spirit to touch it. If you put it in a place where on solid ground and you just sit there and you watch it and you hear ting, you're going to know that it was paranormal, especially if you have a camera on it. I tend to do that. I tend to go with old school type stuff. I don't know if I've ever captured an EVP. I listen. I don't hear it. So have I captured one? No, but I've heard spirits talk to me. So the best piece of equipment I have is me. But the thing is I can't prove me. Make sense?
Right. Perfect. Because that's the same, it's the same thing with us. Teresa and I were both have abilities, and we know, without a doubt of what it is. But proving that to someone who is a skeptic is another thing. So,
right.
So I definitely know where you're coming from.
Yeah, one thing that happened at the Pythian Castle, this was back in November of last year, we went on an investigation there. Okay, they gave us a history, but they didn't give us all, they only gave us some names. The thing is, we get in there, and we're walking through, and the lady that's giving the tour is talking, and I said, excuse me, can I ask you, who is Jesse? And she goes, I'm getting to that. And I said, well, he's here. And she goes, he is? And I go, yeah, who is he? And she proceeded to tell the story that he had committed suicide. He had mouth cancer, and he actually shot himself in the throat, underneath his chin, and with a shotgun, which is really hard. And it's documented in the newspaper there. And I said, okay, well, that explains why he's here. And she goes, how did you know about Jesse? And I said, well, he's here. He's telling me. I said, he can't talk. I said, that's the only thing I know is that he says his name is Jesse, but he's whispering. And she goes, well, he had mouth cancer or throat cancer. And so how would I know that other than, asking the question, who is Jesse? Right. I found out later on that he's buried at the graveyard in Springfield, Missouri. And I was like, okay, well, where? And they go, well, at the Pythian, at the Knights of Pythias. Okay, well, I've never been there. So for me, it was like, okay, well, not a big deal. So that was the first thing that happened that I couldn't explain. The second thing was they let us go out on our own. And I was in the Pythian Castle was used as a prisoner of war camp during World War II. Okay, so, and it's in the middle of Missouri. So all it took was high-ranking Italian, Japanese, and German soldiers. And they took them there to interrogate them. And then you figure if they escaped, how far are they going to go? They could go a lot of places, but they're not going to get back to wherever they started. They had a long way to go in the middle of Missouri to get to either coast. And I'm in this cell, and it was also used as an orphanage and an old folks home city building at one time, all kinds of stuff, okay? It's from 1910 till now. It's been all kinds of things. But I had this man, his name was Peter, who came in and he was mean to me. And he scratched me down the middle of my back. And I mean, not once. It was like he took his finger and went down my back 3 times. And, like at Sally House, when I feel it, it's one. It's one swipe and that's it. They're done. Here it was like methodical, it felt like, or maniacal. But I don't think he was evil. I just think that he hated the nurses there that took care of them when, during that time when they were POWs and stuff, or the ladies that were there, and just lashed out. Well, the thing is the next time I was there, which was a few weeks ago, I got scratched again, and it felt like 3. It looks like 2.5 in the picture, but it happened again, but this time in an interrogation room. It's a soundproof room that was down in the basement of this place, so the complete opposite end of the floor that we were on. And he said his name was Peter again. I have no proof of any POW that was named Peter there. That's what we're trying to find out now, is who's Peter, so that I can validate, was his name Peter? Was his last name Peters? How was Peter spelled? Things like that. But I mean, again, I can't prove anything other than the fact that I had marks on my back in a place where I couldn't put them. And I had on multiple shirts. It was cold. I always wear at least 2 shirts for some reason. Don't ask me why. But, and it was underneath my bra. When my husband looked, he goes, it's underneath the bra, and it looks like it's, going down her back, but underneath. And, of course, I can't see anything because it's on my back. All I can do is feel. Well, this last time when I was there, not only did something happen to me, something happened to Tony Pickman, who was there with us. And it was very interesting, that here he's saying, this is the first time we've investigated together, and he's telling me how he thinks that we're marked, that we will always get attacked in different places. I don't know. It's weird that, that kind of evidence I can't explain, and I can't prove to anyone that wasn't right there with me at the time that I didn't do something.
Right. Well, and we all have that. We all have, where we've been on, we know without a doubt there's something there, but, and you could tell, we all tell our, our stories of the events that have happened, and, it's a hard thing when you're talking about evidence, and I mean, because most people want that Class A EVP or the full body apparition or that type of thing before they become believers, in the paranormal. But well, I find everything that we've been talking about very interesting, and I know you have a lot of experience and you've been to on a lot of investigations, and I appreciate you sharing everything with us. And I think I'm going to hand it back over to Teresa before we run out of time, though. But I just wanted to tell you thank you for being on and being so honest and answering all the questions.
Well, if I'm not anything, I mean, honesty is the most important part of the paranormal investigations. Because the minute you find out somebody lied, they're done.
I agree.
So being honest is, no matter what anybody says, that's actually the most important part of your paranormal investigative team is honesty.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being on.
Well, thank you for having me, Regina.
We have about 5 minutes left here, so what I'm going to do now, Denise, is go ahead and let you give out your website or your contact information to the listening audience, so that way if they want to get in touch with you or maybe review your Facebook or whatever website you have, that they'll be able to do that. So do you want to go ahead and do that real quick?
Sure. If you guys want to check out the Sally House, go to visitAtchison.com and tell them that Denise sent you. That's really important that you tell them where you heard about the Sally House from. And then if you would like to find me on Facebook, I'm Denise Pridemore. You'll see I wear a purple mask. I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan. That's why. It's Baltimore Ravens colors. That's what it's going to be. And then I'm also on paranormalking.com Monday nights at 7 o'clock Central Time. I have a radio show called The Paranormal Pride, and I love doing my show. I have a great time. I'm not on the air until June 6th. I'm actually on vacation due to Victoria Day and Memorial Day holidays coming up. And then, let's see, I also have the paranormal group page, the Pridemore Paranormal on Facebook. You can contact me at any one of those 3 sites. I also just started a new endeavor recently. I'm going to be changing the name of the page, but right now it's called Cookbooks for COPD. My mom has got COPD, and she's not going to be with us a whole long time. And we need to come up with some money to get a roof on her house, and so she wants to sell her collectible cookbooks. So if anybody out there is looking for collectible cookbooks, I have about 500 of them that I'm trying to get rid of. So there you go.
Fantastic. And Denise, we really, really enjoyed having you on our show. I hope that you would love to come do it again with us. And we appreciate it. And thank you so much for being on Facebook with us, too. And please, afterwards, PM me. I'd like to get with you and give you a special thank you. And maybe we can talk on a more personal level.
Anytime. I'm always around.
Regina, thank you so much. I guess it was exciting. Loved the show tonight. And thank you for also being such a great co-host.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Many blessings out there, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Good night.
Into the Shadows with Regina and Teresa. Join them as they unravel the mysteries of the paranormal and discover who or what is lurking in the darkness.